It's the classic FASERIP podcast. I am one of your hosts, DM Vince, and I'm sitting alongside. Actually, I'm a judge on this one. So, Judge Vince sitting alongside of Judge Nick
Hello, everybody.
and Judge Matt.
Hello, everyone.
We are back for another show by popular demand because of all the feedback we've been getting. Right, guys?
Right. Popular it is. True.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people giving some positive feedback, which we appreciate, and we'll get to that more in the email segment. We want to get right into things. So, yeah, we're going to continue doing shows. We got some mini shows coming up that'll explore some characters from yesteryear. Did you call it yesteryear? I don't know.
Yesteryear. Yeah.
Yesteryear, going to go into the Wayback Machine and dig out some of the lesser known and forgotten characters of yore and bring them back to life in this wonderful role-playing game system.
Mhm.
Absolutely. All right, so we do have a review from iTunes, Nick.
Yeah, we do have a review from iTunes here. So, everybody who wants to give us a review there, head on over to iTunes sometime and let us know what you think, good or for bad. And we will read them on the air. And we got one from Cryptner, I believe. I believe that's Captain. I'm not sure.
I don't know. CP Tyner? I don't know.
CP Tyner?
Corporal,
That sounds right.
corporal.
No, that'd be Captain Einer.
Captain.
It's just
Captain.
CP Tyner. I'll go with CP Tyner.
There we go.
Sounds like a rapper name. So CP Tyner, yo, what's up? so CP Tyner says, awesome retro gaming fun. And we got 5 stars. Our first 5-star review.
Yay.
So nice to see these 3 guys bringing back interest in the best superhero RPG out there. I agree. Love the format and the obvious passion these guys have, and they are well versed not only in the game mechanics but also the comics and pop culture in general. Excelsior!
Excelsior!
Yes. Enough said.
Yeah, right.
So thank you there, CP Tyner. Keeping it real.
There we go.
So yeah, we do love it, and as far as the game mechanics, not too difficult. So anybody can learn them, even a dummy like me. So
It's easy game mechanics, definitely, and it's fun to play the game. So we definitely, but we're not the be all end all of anything. So please, don't think that.
no.
There's people out there that are like from still living that actually wrote the game. They're the experts. We're just loving fans. That's all.
Yep.
We're kindling the fire with the rest of everybody out there.
Yep.
All right, cool. Thanks for that review. Let's head right into things. This week, we're going to focus on judges and how to run games judge-wise, give ideas for structuring an adventure and giving a little idea. And we also have like a little scenario at the end, like an adventure seed that I wrote up that we're just going to kind of like go through, and we're going to, give you some ideas of what we can do with that, and, see, just kind of, on the fly, come up with stuff with it. And if you like it, cool. Maybe you'll use it. If not, you can just sit there and laugh at us. That's all. Why not, right?
That's okay. I can live with that.
There we go. So let's talk about structures for an adventure. First of all, we have the free-form adventure because, players are unpredictable. Very much so. Every player is. Linear is just a straight line. It's kind of, I guess, it's kind of like a railroad type thing, which doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room. And that's what most of the modules that were out there were like. Very, very linear, one-sided, not a lot of wiggle room, even though you can, if you're a good DM, or GM, I should say, give a lot of wiggle room. And what was the third one here I don't get, Nick, that you wrote down? Basic campaign outline?
Yeah, and it's kind of a hybrid between the two.
Yep.
It's in my opinion, it's the best way you can do almost any sort of campaign. It's basically, think of it as like a tree.
Okay.
And you have the start, the roots of your campaign where it starts, and then it branches out from there. And you have all these different possibilities where, your player characters may go. So it's, if they do this, maybe we could do this. It's kind of like a free form, but there is some rough general contingency plans in case they go in certain areas. You just, then I'll go this route, something like that. But the end result, the branches eventually go to a common end, if you will.
So there's a
That's
route
how
to get to the conclusion of things or the end of the adventure of the week, but you plotted out a whole different bunch of ways that the players could go with their characters and hope that they take those routes.
Right. And those routes, you don't go into too much detail, just like, just a basic portion of the scenario, what you have in mind, jot it down and go from there.
Yeah, that definitely can work for a GM that doesn't know what to do but has an idea in his head but doesn't know how his characters will act. So yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Let alone the players.
Yeah. It can also give you alternatives should things start to go off the rails. You now have all these other things you could start interjecting into the campaign to try to get it back on the rails.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
and I think unlike other games, at least I think with this sort of game, unpredictability is okay.
Yeah,
because you could take. How many of us read through the comic books and all of a sudden the characters take a whole different turn, or there's just some strange twist in the plot, and you're like, I didn't see that one coming. Stuff like that.
That's definitely true.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with this game, I think the bigger thing to worry about it more so than unpredictable players is player inaction. It's when the players sit there and they just get stumped and start to do nothing. Yeah. I think you're more likely to fall into that trap than the players are just being nuts and doing all this crazy things and I don't know what to do. I think you can run with that more than a player group that does nothing, that just sits there, like, we don't know what to do next, because you've laid out this plot and they're just missing some clue that you feel like has a giant blinking neon light on it. And so they just sit there, like, we don't know what to do.
So when you sorry, go ahead.
Oh no. But so that is something to where you need to, should the players get stuck, how do you get them out of that? I think having just some contingency plans for that is useful.
Yeah, definitely.
Stuck as in just have no direction where to go.
Yeah,
right.
He's referencing, yeah.
Right. Like when I was running my game, it hit a point where I had laid some seeds. There was a riot, and I was throwing all these little subtle hints, like, "Hey, you might want to check the underground Nazi group because the big bad in this was going to be Red Skull." They just, for whatever reason, would not look at the Nazis. They would never want to investigate the Nazis. I'm like, one, players not wanting to go after the Nazis, little okay. So, but it just took forever. It took a few sessions almost to they finally figured out, hey, we should maybe look at the Nazis.
Yeah,
just an idea.
Yeah, because they started talking to S.H.I.E.L.D. They started going all these other weird ways, and I'm just like, oh, what do I do? I started actually one game I ended up doing I'm going to take a random villain and just have this villain be doing something to keep the game moving. At which point they did that, and then I got a little creative, and by them doing that, they got some media attention, which then caused PETA to piggyback on them, because in the process, they saved a bunch of animals. So there was a PETA gala that was going to be held in New York, and they invited the players, which had the players there. They came to get the reward to get the pub, at which point Kingpin was there because some of his businesses were involved in the earlier riot, and they kind of helped him by making his stuff. So he said, hey, this is kind of what's going on. I don't want to deal with it. You should deal with this. So that's how I kind of got it back on track. But
that's good.
You get them where they need to go, but it still feels like that the path they took is what got them there, not you kind of gently nudging them in that direction.
And they were none the wiser.
Right.
Yeah. So when you wrote up that adventure there, Matt, how did you write up that adventure for the Red Skull and everything? Did you just kind of do freeform, or did you linear it? What did you do?
Well,
exactly?
What I did is I was basically flipping through the player's guide to the Marvel universe, and I'm like, oh, hate monger, I want to do something with him. And then I'm like, oh, Red Skull. And then for some reason, them trying to raise Cthulhu came into my mind. So I started with that.
I probably was involved with that somehow, I'm sure.
Probably you planted the Cthulian seeds. So I started with that. Then I'm like, okay. And then I like flipping through modules and stealing encounters and things. So in that, there was the Concrete Jungle.
Yeah.
It's the one where Craven and the rat guy whose name is escaping me, Vermin, they take some like hate spray and cause a riot downtown. So I'm like, oh, that's a hate monger inspires hating people. He would do that. So I took that encounter where hate monger wasn't even involved, and then I link him to that. So I'm like, okay, hate monger's just trying to perfect his little hate poison. So we have that. So then I just set up the riot and just kind of played out that adventure, but instead of using the pre-gen characters in that module, I let my players do it. But and then I just replaced the little seeds of like what the big plot was, but trying to link it more towards hate monger, Red Skull, and that like. So I just kind of went from there to see where they would go. Because the entire reason they were even doing wanting the hate spray is because that was like a test, because they actually used it on a peace rally. So violence broke out at a peace rally in a park across the street from the house that the players lived in.
The irony.
Yes. It was also the park right next to the hospital. So if you actually have the Marvel map, you can kind of figure out where this is. Because all of my locations were based around the map in the game as well. So I also had that. So if I needed something, I could be like, okay, this building here is where it's going to be happening. And it also helped me flesh out like the world in general too, because it's already kind of pre-made, but not. You have the names of the businesses, so you just got to plug in the people that work there. So I had that, and I knew one of the players worked in an occult bookstore. So I said, okay, as part of his background, so because he had a magic background. So I'm like, okay, what Red Skull and Hate Monger need is going to be in that bookstore, but unbeknownst to the player. So then they had a bigger riot breakout in the neighborhood where that occult bookstore was. They go to stop it, and then the guy goes in to see his smashed up workplace and is like, oh no, they took that book. Why would they want that book? Then they research it. Oh, no. And then that's how they ended up having to have the climactic battle with Red Skull and Hate Mongers. They almost raised Cthulhu.
And how many sessions was that over, that whole entire thing?
That entire thing was probably over like 12 to 15 sessions.
Okay.
Yeah, because
story arc.
Yeah, because there was a few other things. Like at one point, they were like trying to bug the Avengers to get the Avengers to help. At which point, they got Jarvis, but their popularity was so low, Jarvis wouldn't let him talk to anyone. Just like, who? Who are you? Yeah. No, they're busy. No, go. He kept chewing them off. But then at the end, after they got the pub and all of that, then they get the little high five from Captain America at the very end as they're on the SHIELD helicarrier. Because they ended up needing to get over to the other side of the world really quick, where the ceremony to raise Cthulhu was taking place. So that's when they managed to get Nick Fury's attention, who loaned them a jet. Get them there. So they went from being ignored by all these people to like, hey, good job, fellow.
Becoming best friends.
Right.
Best friends forever.
Yeah.
Well, so that kind of is a good transition into the next section of planning campaigns, and that's ideas of how to start your campaign, how to write it down. And I found some random, like, I don't know if you guys took a look at them yet, but they're like the random supervillain escapes, random villain tables. The random villain table, I don't know where I found that, but I thought that was hysterical because it's kind of like a Mad Libs for villain type thing.
Yeah, it is.
So basically, it's just a string of blank spaces with some words. Blank, blank, uses blank to blank because blank is driven by blank, blank. So there's little numbers there. So like the first term, like you would roll a d8, and you would say, okay, so I rolled it 4. So choose a color, red, red, and then you would go to the second chart here, and then roll a roll a red insect. Okay, red ant. There we go. A giant red ant uses, and then we go to 3. Say we roll magic. Giant red ant uses his magic ray to, what's it for here? Destroy. Because destroy, let's say, the Empire State Building, because he feels. Oh, sorry. He is driven by. I don't know, hatred of the fact that he doesn't like New Yorkers. There.
They're always stepping on him.
Yeah, he's pissed at people stepping on his cousins.
Tired of being the little guy.
Yeah, that was kind of cheesy, but it basically you could look at that and be like, okay, giant ant, that's kind of lame. What else do we have there? And you can start picking and choosing from these like charts here, and look at that. You built a story. Isn't that amazing?
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. And also with this, occasionally having that cheesy lame villain is okay. It can provide a nice little interlude break from all the tension too.
I was thinking of the Red Mist from Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
He was kind of lame.
He was, but And then the what do you guys think about the D100 Supervillains Escape one?
Some of those are really out there, and some of them are really good. I like how the villain escapes here. The one, so typical a villain does one of these things to avoid capture, jump off cliff into a raging river, volcano, or explosion. Yeah, but the villain escapes. The other ones, the D100 was a hologram or illusion. I like that one.
Yeah, that sounds so typical Marvel right there.
Right. It was the
Or
life model decoy.
Experimental clone. Red Skull's used that a few times.
What about Doctor Doom with the Doom bots? I mean,
yeah, the androids. But here's taken to a hidden utopian civilization with a secret by portal.
Yeah, I don't know where I found this, but I thought there was hysterical half these things on here.
Right.
Yeah.
Taken to a version of Court of King Arthur by Morgan Le Fay.
Yeah, wow. Taken back to prehistoric times to battle cavemen or dinosaurs.
I like this, taken by demon worshipping ninja cult. Wow, is that
Yeah.
out there?
So that's almost Hydra.
Almost, yeah, kind of.
Almost Hydra.
But there's 100 things on this chart, and I'll include this with the show notes so you can download. And if you know where this was from, by all means, leave a comment on the blog so we can give the person proper credit. Because I found this just like this, a blank PDF with all this on it. So I'm sure somebody created this, but in the Marvel community, and I definitely would like to give that person credit because I've used this more than once. Just as a funny...
Gray aliens study your abilities in saucer in hyperspace. Oh great.
yeah, definitely. So
but even then, something like that, just to point out, it's like if that could lead off into a whole other tangent in a campaigns where next thing you know, now you've almost gone into a whole X-Files thing. You're investigating Area 51. You're fighting alien greys along with the supervillain. It could be interesting.
That's definitely could. That also transitions to another bit of plotting up your adventures here, but. Matt's idea was to look through there and grab some villains and then try to build a story around that. Now, is that how you did yours, Nick, when you played your games?
Gosh, when I was more I was more of a player than a referee. I don't think I ever reffed a game.
Oh, okay.
But on the player side, I do remember a campaign where, as far as an idea for a villain. The only thing I really remember of it, and this was a while ago, is that the guy who was running it basically threw in stuff from Star Wars.
Oh, really?
And it was a alternate, I guess you could call it an alternate universe thing in the Marvel multiverse, where it's an ultimate timeline where, yes, the Star Wars stuff exists, George Lucas knew about this stuff, and he wrote about it, quote unquote, as fiction.
Oh.
And eventually the Empire came to Earth and their Star Destroyers and everything, and the superheroes had to fight the Empire and all that stuff. So we were having like, in fact, one of the characters became a Jedi.
Oh.
so we're having like, yes, Marvel superheroes, Star Wars clash. It was pretty damn epic. So
Cool.
yeah, it was fun because somebody kept. I just remember some guy saying, "I want to get an X-wing. I want to get an X-wing." I'm like, "Oh, who doesn't?"
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Now, for the campaign that I'm running currently, they're all villains, so it's kind of a little more difficult to plan things because I have to react. It's weird, too, because I have to react based on what they do as opposed to they reacting what I do.
Sure.
So they're going around, they're still like, petty criminals at this point doing like the last thing we were left at before the holidays because we haven't had a chance to play that in a while. They were going after the local drug lords, and then they were planning on going after the cartel, but various times they were caught like on camera on the news using their abilities. So what I have planned out that they're all Inhumans, mutant Inhumans. So now there's the Sentinel services are starting to investigate them. Now I have a senator that's up and coming that's going to be running on the platform of make America human again.
Oh boy.
Well, it's a legit theme that would happen because people were scared of these, mutant terrorists pretty much. So,
Oh yeah.
So I have this whole story arc where I'm going to introduce him, and he's going to bring out the Sentinel services to the forefront, I should say, so the players know that their characters can't just do this or that. So I want to have these Sentinel services starting to investigate them now at this point. Maybe not right away, but I want them to know that their actions have caused this, so they have to watch out what they do in the future. They can't just run around stealing shit and, moving forward.
Well, that kind of goes into what I guess we're going to talk about here in a little bit, for other campaign ideas like the alternate timeline stuff.
Yeah, you wrote all this down, Nick, so go ahead, please continue.
Yeah, I was just, well, one of the things that I kind of jotted down is how you could get ideas for maybe a campaign or just a couple adventures is like the alternate timeline sort of thing. Like the classic one is the Days of Future Past timeline from X-Men back in the day.
Right.
Where that whole timeline, in case people forgot, and I could be wrong on some of the details, but there was a point where there was some legislation that was passed. It was a Mutant Registration Act or something of that nature.
Yeah, there was one point, yeah.
Yeah, and that's where the timeline diverged, and then mutants were rounded up, and then it expanded from there. Then they started just to get enhanced humans. I mean, they rounded up people like Jean Grey and Cyclops and Colossus, but then they were starting to go after people like Spider-Man and Captain America.
Yeah. No one was safe at that point.
And then eventually you had the Sentinels come along. The Sentinel program was, and then basically you're in a whole dystopian society in the future where if you're not a pure human, you're pretty much dead, or you're living in hiding. And I thought that's a great, setting because now you're introduced into a place where your characters, they are, in all intents and purposes, outlaws. So they're already with a huge disadvantage, which can make things really interesting.
The whole survival, fight for your life, hide, run, fight thing is a very popular theme among every RPG that normally will work out. It's a really good campaign if you have players that like to role play and combat a lot too. So,
and that. And I think with something like that, like the Days of Future Past sort of timeline, if you want to go with that, it will, because everybody of your type of people are labeled as, basically non-human.
Yeah.
It might create some very unlikely but interesting alliances. You might find yourself aligned with former villains for all you know.
It's true.
Have that sort of angle. I mean, where are some of the? I mean, who was it? Some of the villains that were mutants. Like what was it?
Are you talking about Days of Future Past or?
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of the villains that were mutants in the regular Marvel universe that could have like maybe survived and hid, but now you're allies with. I'm trying to think of some of the top of my head that were villains.
Like Toad or something like that.
Toad.
Or...
I think was it Silver Samurai?
Yeah, Silver Samurai.
He's a villain.
Mystique would probably survive.
Mystique. There you go.
Because she could
because she's the one that triggered it all with the assassination of Senator Robert Kelly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you could be, for all you know, you could be teaming up with them.
Yeah.
And that makes for a very interesting situation.
That is actually a pretty good setting if you're just breaking into playing this game for the first time. I think that's a pretty decent setting to kind of base your campaign around, because you have all the movies, which I know people. The movies aren't exactly the comics. I don't care.
Right, but there is the Marvel Cinematic Universe you could follow.
Yeah, you can follow. That is considered, as far as Marvel is concerned, canon. So,
right,
it's part of the Marvel multiverse.
Yeah, Marvel has multiple continuities depending on which version of the character you're referring to. It's like the Ultimates versions are different than the Marvel Universe versions, which are different than the 2099 versions, and they all have their own continuity. And then you can even get into like the animated series have their own continuity compared to the basic universe.
Yep, and that's how they basically justify it. It's like, oh, how does this fit in with here? Well, they're basically alternate realities. Like, just to remind everybody, like Earth 616, as they've numbered it, is the standard continuity timeline. Wasn't
there at one point like a million different universes for Marvel?
Yeah, kind of.
There's like 16 main ones.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, there's basically anything that's ever kind of been like almost like a what if or a slightly alternate reality is its own reality.
Yeah, true.
So you have the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Earth 199999.
Yeah.
That's considered part of the Marvel multiverse. That's the cinematic universe. And then you have one of the, I think would be a very interesting one, Earth 2149. It's the Marvel Zombies one.
Yeah.
You could do like a superhero Walking Dead type thing.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And then Matt can fall asleep because he doesn't like that.
That would be really
right.
cool.
Yeah, I skipped that entire series. I'm just like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Was not interested, huh?
Nope. You said zombies. I shut off.
Yeah, Matt turned the channel.
Zombies. You've been and done that with zombies, huh?
I was never there. I never even got there. It's not like it burned me out. I just was never there. Okay. I mean, they lost me. I'm like, so zombies bit Galactus, and now he's Zombie Galactus.
Yeah.
What?
Zombie Galactus, man. Come on.
Well, then you can tone it down a little bit, because I always thought when I read through it, I'm like, what about Wolverine and his healing factor? How does he become a zombie? How's that possible?
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can also make your own take on it. Maybe not every hero got zombified, because like I wouldn't have Wolverine be that way, let alone
what about Marvel vampires? Everybody turned into vampires.
Well, they also did a later one where they turned Wolverine into a vampire, but they explained it that they shut off his healing factor to intentionally turn him to a vampire so he could sneak in to Dracula, then kicked his healing factor back on, then he was no longer a vampire.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when they turned Jubilee into a vampire. That whole arc.
That was in X-Men 92 or whatever, that comic series, I think, recently. That was amazing that they canceled for some stupid reason.
Right. They've canceled a lot of books recently.
Yeah. I liked, and I remember when it came out, was the Old Man Logan series. It's considered Earth 807128.
Yeah.
And that's another dystopian society where it's the opposite of Days of Future Past, and more or less.
Yeah. which I wasn't a fan of that either. But what you'll discover is I hate dystopian futures, timelines. They just get me turned off so quick. So that's another one. I would get all the Wolverine titles. I'd see this Old Man Logan. I read one. I'm like, yeah, I'll just skip these issues. I'll still get them because I'm a collector, but skip.
Oh, I love the dystopian stuff because it puts everybody at a disadvantage.
I guess my problem is how it got to the dystopian. I'm like, you guys are a bunch of bloody idiots and you deserve it.
Well, that was kind of taken on. Well, if anybody's not familiar with it, that whole Old Man Logan series is basically, all the superheroes were either killed or somehow incapacitated.
Right.
All the villains basically got together and defeated all the heroes, and they carved up the United States. Don't know what happened to the rest of the world though, but the rest of the United States got carved up.
Oh, who cares about? No, I'm kidding.
Right.
I'm just teasing.
But interestingly enough, Hulk. I don't know if he was I don't know if
he was just more rampaging.
Yeah, and he just kind of, and then Hulk had kids.
Yeah.
Well, why not? Hulk can have kids. Stop it.
Yes.
Hulk, good dad.
Oh God.
Basically.
Hulk, good dad.
It's
you guys.
Yeah. But
with that.
But those are some.
But there was the one you were talking, like the Marvel 2099. I remember those.
I love 2099.
Yeah,
man.
same here. It was like my go-to was like Punisher 2099.
Oh,
that was
Yep.
Yep. And then they had then Stan Lee made a character specifically for it, Ravage.
Yep.
So I've got like a lot of the number ones from that. I think my Ravage is even signed by Stan Lee.
Ooh.
My Spider-Man 2099 hologram was signed by him at the San Diego Comic Con.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I don't have it anymore.
I bought mine for autographed comics for some reason that I don't know exactly, but it was very weird. They had a whole bunch of comics. It was like some company went and just paid for the guys to bulk sign a bunch of books. And somehow they ended up in like grocery stores, like a Meijer grocery store near me. And they were like dirt cheap. Because I've got like Batman 500 signed by like 6 people. And now we're assuming they're legit autographs. I mean, I got the certificate of authenticity, but whatever that means.
I had my issue when I was there in San Diego. When I was there in the Navy, had my issues Spider-Man 2099 hologram signed by Stan Lee. I stood in line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Met him. I'll never forget it. He's like, he shook my hand and
he said
and I said, oh, you're left-handed. He goes, you're too? I was like, yeah. He goes, you know what they say, left-handed people are in their right minds.
That's cool. Yeah.
That was really cool. Oh my gosh, I'll never forget it. And I don't have that damn comic anymore.
Oh.
It was either the 2099 one or they did a whole bunch of reprints of first issues with hologram covers, and I had Spider-Man #1 hologram, and he signed it for me. I don't have it anymore. I'm an idiot.
I know a lot of the 2099 books at my comic book store are in this bin of $1 or less. So
yeah,
I grabbed a whole bunch of them when we started doing this this podcast, so in case we referenced them. And now that I know that Matt loves it and Nick enjoys it, maybe we could do some specials. I was super pumped when I saw on the unofficial canon Facebook for Marvel project that someone put up a graphic for a 2099 box set, but no one has actually done it. I think the person just mocked up a cover and was like, this would be a good project to explore.
Yeah.
How about this one, guys, for another alternate, Marvel 1602.
What's
16?
Oh, 1602. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one where it all takes place in basically colonial America and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Then we can't also forget about the Larval universe. Earth 8311 with Peter Porker and Spider-Ham.
Spider-Ham.
All the parody characters.
Oh, the pun fisher. Yeah, I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Did they
Peter
ever have
Porker.
a Marvel universe that they went back to like the fantasy times for like D&D era or anything? Because I don't remember seeing one like that.
Marvel 1602 is about the closest thing you could get to
Yeah.
that.
Okay, yeah, it'd be kind of neat to see them all back in that time.
If you do know, Conan is part of the Marvel universe.
Starting very soon.
Yeah, Conan the Barbarian, because
Well,
they had their own Conan comic series.
Well, it's coming back.
they did.
It's coming back. Did you see that?
Marvel's doing Conan again?
Yep, I just saw the announcement. Someone put it up. Comicbook.com or something put it up saying that Conan's coming back to the Marvel image.
Nice.
So
nice.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool announcement.
So is Ulrich as well, because they faced each other at one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could even make an argument if you wanted to that the Larry Hama G.I. Joe from the 80s is Marvel, because they did have a comic.
It is.
Yeah,
Them
that could be another
Transformers.
timeline. Yeah, Transformers.
But I don't think they were in the same universe.
They weren't, but hey, they published a comic at this point. You can. I'd do it. I know where the G.I. Joe and Transformer comic currently are. They actually do have one comic where they say all of them are in the same universe. And I think they might have even, I think it's IDW. They did Transformers and G.I. Joe are in the same universe with each other.
Right, they are.
Yeah, and then
that's what I meant. It's like Transformers, G.I. Joe, same universe with each other, but not with the Marvel, not with the rest of the Marvel superheroes. They're their own separate.
I would love.
Universe. That's what I remember.
That's what it was. But I'm saying you can make you can go ahead. Hey, if Marvel publishes it as a comic, make it its own universe that you can work out of.
Yeah.
So I would definitely love that as a campaign set, a G.I. Joe or a Transformer, so we could sit down and play that. I mean,
yeah,
that would be tremendously fun.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, it was like there was
too.
recently a Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover where they basically just said they're different dimensions, and the Turtles ended up getting sucked into Gotham because Shredder was trying to do some stuff. So you had a Batman Ninja Turtle fight, and it was 4-on-1, and Batman beat them.
Of course, he's Batman, dude.
Exactly. Well, and it was funny, even afterwards, the Turtles were sitting around talking like, oh, he's really good. I could tell he was even holding back, and he kicked all 4 of those butts.
Oh, God.
Oh, my gosh.
That was one of those, we're going to do this deal with you, Batman's going to win, and you're going to talk him up because we have more product than you do.
Right.
You're just a piddly little company. We don't care. That's what that sounds like. I'm sorry, but whatever.
Well, no, the thing is, the Batman does that with everyone. It doesn't matter who you are. He will beat you because he's Batman.
Yeah, of course, he's Batman, just like Superman is Superman. So,
and Batman still beats Superman too. So therefore, Batman is the most powerful force in the universe.
Yeah, right.
Who needs an Infinity Gauntlet if you have Batman?
Infinity Gauntlet versus Batman. I think Batman would be dead. Come on now.
He would have something screwy to where he would trick like Thanos, kind of like the Marvel Universe did in the original Infinity Gauntlet. How they tricked him into not using all the gems.
That's true.
At the very end.
God, I remember that series when I was a kid coming out and like running to the comic book store to get the next issue of that to figure out what happened. Ugh.
Yeah.
I miss those days of comics. I mean, comics these days just don't really seem like they used to. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, it's just, it doesn't have this, it's a very different, I think it's a different world, so therefore they're reflecting more of the times. And if you think about how when like the early 60s and 70s, what they were writing about compared to now, because Marvel was always had political undertones.
Oh yeah, they were always forefront and everything. Yeah,
they always were. And I think just as we grow up, we relate better to the themes that were our youth than we do the current days. Just like 20 years from now, the kids of today will relate better to those comics than they would to the current day comics. And that's just kind of the evolution, the joys of getting old and nostalgia.
Well, I noticed that pulling comics from the 90s and the ones I grew up reading in high school and junior high and everything in the 80s back in grammar school, if I read them now, it's kind of like I have to get into a different mindset to read those. And as much as I love them, it's just like I I don't know, for some reason it's just so much different than the comics today. So, and it has nothing to
Right.
do with like
it is. You're right.
It's not the political undertones or anything like that. I think it's just the style it was written and presented back then compared to how it is now.
Yeah. Like like now it seems to be far more art driven
Yeah,
in some
yeah.
ways. With compare the massive blobs of text on like
Well,
if you go back to the early days of Marvel, like the beginning Fantastic Four and Daredevil, Spider-Man, walls of text. Whereas then as like the 80s and you started getting the hotshot artist, instead of
Right.
having the artist be like Jack Kirby, you started getting your Todd McFarlane's and their art style.
And then in the 90s, early 90s, that's when the kind of the split happened with Image Comics.
Right.
Ooh, yeah.
When like Rob Liefeld and McFarlane went and did their own thing because
Yeah.
they wanted more money. And
that's
And
another
it
time.
became more about how it looked and less about the story.
And then also it coincided with the timing of speculators hitting the comic market because they
Yeah.
saw a lot of those old issues were worth things. So therefore, hey, every time then Marvel caught on, hey, every time we throw out a number one, it sells a lot. So we'll just keep making number ones of all these things and these lenticular foil alternate covers. Like how I think it was like Spider-Man 200. How many different variants of that did they have? They had like a black foil, and then they had
Oh yeah, that's right.
the lenticular cover, and there's like 5 or 6 different versions of the exact same comic, all with different covers.
You know
And
what?
they would sell for insane prices. And then eventually, like X-Men 1 sold like 5 million copies, something nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see on the topic of comic book covers and special Action Comics is coming up on 1,000 now. I'm interested to see what they do with that issue and how well
Action
it sells.
Comics?
Yeah, Action Comics.
Wow.
Yeah, coming up on issue.
But didn't they technically reboot the numbering at one point and went back with that? One of their reboots.
They did a reboot and then a boot and then a reboot and then went back to the numbering system again. So
Yeah, that's what I thought they did.
they were trying to get to the 1,000 and then they realized it was stupid, so they went back to what they were doing. So
Yeah.
Right.
now they're finally getting to 1,000. Detective Comics is coming up on 1,000 in another 20 something issues, I think. So I'm just interested to see what they do with that. What?
When we were just talking about Transformers and G.I. Joe, I mean,
There's a site.
there's gonna be a Bumblebee movie, spin-off movie, right?
Yeah, I
Yes.
saw that. Yep.
And you see who's starring in it?
Who?
Cue the music. John Cena.
Do, 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 do.
That's your cue there when we do the edit.
No, I'm not putting in John Cena music.
John Cena.
Really? John Cena's going to star in that movie?
John Cena.
Mark-
Film began this past August.
Mark Wahlberg can't do the Transformers?
It's set in 1987.
What?
So
John Cena was like, what, 10?
well, John Cena. Well, I don't know. That's what I'm reading here on Wikipedia.
Is he going to be John Cena or is he going to be somebody else?
I'm assuming he's going to be somebody else.
Yeah.
He can't be
Hey, if you want a
WWE
wrestler
superstar.
but it can't afford Dwayne Johnson, you
John Cena. Dun, 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 dun. Great.
Oh,
We
Lord.
get to do that meme all over again.
I watched an awful movie on HBO while I was kind of sick this past week, and it had Chavo in it, Matt. Chavo Guerrero.
Chavo Guerrero
Listed
Oh, no,
as Saul Guerrero. So
Oh,
it was so awful that I didn't even look at the name, and I turned it off as I fell asleep. So
yeah. You're like, oh, it's Chavo.
yeah, pretty much. Anyway, so those are some universes you can look at for your adventure. Now, what we got here also is an adventure seed that I wrote up. We spoke about this in the beginning, and I just want to kind of read it out, and maybe we can kind of hash out what we can do with this, and if it'll work, maybe it won't work. Who knows? But okay, so this is a little fun exercise. Spider-Man has gone missing. The heroes are enlisted to help search for him before it's too late. Now, the background that you give to players, or as you're writing it up yourself, it's been 72 hours and no one has heard from the Spider-Man, Peter Parker. The Avengers are busy on an out-of-this-world mission to save the planet Earth. What else is new, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Pepper Potts has reached out to you on behalf of Tony Stark because Peter has not checked in with him for an update on some vital information. The GPS tracker last has Peter located in Hell's Kitchen, New York before the signal went dead. Why was Peter in Hell's Kitchen, New York?
Getting a snack because it's Hell's Kitchen.
Why would you want to go to Hell's Kitchen for a snack?
Because it's a kitchen in hell. Maybe you want some deviled eggs. I don't know.
Okay, so
I'm sorry. Bad pun.
Where is the disconnect button for Nick?
Yes. Yeah.
Some things have never changed, has it?
No. So,
well, for me, when I hear Hell's Kitchen, maybe he's doing something with Daredevil.
Yeah.
Or one of the other local supers. Maybe he had to talk to the Heroes for Hire.
There's a bunch of possibilities with Hell's Kitchen, including the Punisher you could use as well. But the players at this point, so the players have to go investigate based on the GPS tracker. Where would Peter be in Hell's Kitchen? So maybe he went to go visit Daredevil. Maybe he went to go find the Punisher for some information. So there's so many little crazy things you could do with this during the investigation. I came up with there could be sightings of Spider-Man all around town, leading them on a wild goose chase. Meanwhile, it's maybe a villain dressed up as Spider-Man trying to screw up his name while they have him captive. Who knows?
Right.
Yeah.
What would you guys do with this?
Or like you were going with, not only just maybe a villain, maybe some people saying, Spider-Man's gone, I have to take up the mantle. You got other normal folks dressing up as Spider-Man.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
But I think this is a pretty neat little seed for something to work with for an adventure. I mean...
absolutely.
It's a hook. I mean, it's Spider-Man. People love Spider-Man. It involves the Avengers somehow. Who knows? Maybe you might get them as a contact. I mean, Pepper Potts reached out to you, so right there is a contact.
Yeah. And the way Marvel is, especially olden day Marvel, it could be Peter intentionally shut off his GPS tracker just because he needed to go off the grid just to take care of some personal business for couple days. Yeah. So you go to Hell's Kitchen, you get in all these hijinks, dealing with all these villains and everything. Then eventually you find Spider-Man just hanging out with Aunt May because he just wanted to celebrate her birthday.
Or knowing Peter Parker, he dropped the GPS tracker in water somewhere because he was just a bumbling idiot sometimes. So
right, he accidentally smashed it swinging and is like, "Oops, I broke it," but didn't want to tell Tony because he's done it before, and Tony yells at him.
Yeah, and he's a kid, so.
Underoos.
When I wrote this, I was thinking of Spider-Man: Homecoming. That whole how Tony and the young Spider-Man were interacting with each other. So I figured that'd be kind of a good jumping off point to get this moving forward. But
question on that movie: is it worth watching?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen it, so.
Yeah, I would see it if you enjoy the whole Spider-Man trilogy going on, or series, whatever the heck it's called at this point.
Well, I mean, they've done 3 reboots in 5 years or something like that.
You know? Well,
Right, but this is the first Marvel reboot.
Yeah.
The others were Sony.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hence why we never got a good Fantastic Four movie.
Oh.
Hey.
Well, there was that original 1994 one.
That was awful. Stop it.
That was awful. And that was just because so they could keep the license from going into public.
Right. Oh, it's just I dug out the old Doctor Strange movie from the 70s where he had the 70s
I remember
Brady
watching
Bunch
it on TV when I was a kid.
Yep. And then there's also the classic early Spider-Man and Captain America movies from the early 80s and 90s too that are some fun camp.
Hey.
The Spider-Man show from the 70s was pretty bad. But Incredible Hulk was a very good show with Bill Bixby.
Yes.
Great show. Oh my gosh, great show.
Yeah. And I want to say I did like the Jessica Alba Fantastic Four. I don't care. That was
just like Jessica Alba.
That's true, but I did enjoy that Fantastic Four. No, I enjoyed the first movie, not the Silver Surfer one. I thought that one was just kind of dumb.
Yeah. First one was okay, but it was more Ultimates Fantastic Four than Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Especially Doctor Doom at the end.
Well, one thing, have Victor. If you get Victor Von Doom, he's got to talk about himself in third person.
Right. But he shouldn't have cloven hooves.
No.
But he did.
I know.
Anyway.
Still had Jessica Alba.
But yeah, so back on track. That's a little seed for you. I mean, something for you to write down and maybe just work it up and do an adventure. See how it goes. Let us know how it worked.
Yeah, I'd
What's
use it. It's a great little plot hook.
yeah?
Right.
What's our email
Yeah.
address, Matt?
Our email address is bullpen@classicfaserip.com. bullpen@classic.com.
Go ahead and send us an email. Speaking of that, we'll head into our email segment and feedback section here. We got a lot of good feedback here. So, Matt, I'm going to let you do it because my voice is a little bit dry here in a moment. I got to get something to drink. Go ahead.
Yeah. We've been receiving feedback everywhere. We got some emails, we got some Facebook, we got some website comments. It's been great hearing what everyone thinks of the show so far. I mean, first one here is from a Stephen M. He left on the website. When we were talking about street level games, he brought up the Gang Wars trilogy of modules as a street level campaign.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, no, that would be a great starting point to go look at that and either run it or just mine it for ideas. Because you'll find a lot of the old Marvel modules have great encounters in them that like I did using the Concrete Jungle module. I took that opening encounter, but warped it in to fit into the campaign I was telling. So yeah, totally check those out. And then he also brings up, have we ever considered doing a Twitch show?
Oh my gosh, Twitch.
Doing a little live streaming. So
yeah, we talked about that before the podcast, and we're gonna do that eventually via YouTube. It'd probably be better to do that instead of Twitch, but yeah, we could do it so we'll have live cameras and people can chat and talk to us. But we need to work out a few kinks, so we're gonna just keep doing audio for right now. So sorry about that, folks. But yeah, we'll get to that. We definitely want to do that. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's just we want to make sure before we start saying, hey, everyone show up for this, that we get all the technical kinks worked out first. So once we get that, we will definitely give that a go.
Yep, we'll try it out.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Stephen also brings up talking about the 90s Age of Hype comics. That would be like 70s street level. So yeah, totally doing like the Shaft, Luke Cage, that type of Power Man from like the 70s, that type of a street level. Get that
Power Man,
disco
Iron Fist.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then there was also the Midnight Suns and Ghost Rider, were other like little more higher power level, but still street level at the same time. So that way you can have the occult involved in your street level campaign.
Yep.
So those are some great ideas from Steven. And then we had Ted write in. He would love to see us do a show on just combat and also cosmic level stuff. So yeah, definitely things to talk about as well. So thank you for the feedback. And then everyone's asking, like, when will you release more shows? Right now, our schedule is bi-weekly. So we're shooting for a bi-weekly schedule. So every 2 weeks, you'll get your fix of the Classic FASERIP podcast. And then we also had a Stephen W. write in to bullpen at classicfaserip.com. Got the bullpen going. And he said he was listening to the first couple podcasts, and he caught us saying power feats instead of power stunts. Yes, that's a side effect of playing too many RPGs.
Yeah,
sorry.
We start mixing our mechanics because they're very similar. He was like, yeah, power feats are mutants and masterminds. Yeah. And then he talks about the Cyclops firing optic blast at low power to reduce the speed of a falling character. And he's like, he says Wolverine did do that in a battle with Proteus.
Yep, I remember that. I had that comic book.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and then he's like, he puts one of the unofficial canon projects is the Marvel File, and has like the Howling Commandos, Devil Dinosaur, Moon Girl, Video Man, World of Spider-Man, and his amazing friends. Those have all been covered under the unofficial canon stuff. So a lot of things that we'd mentioned that would be interested in seeing covered. There's a lot of the unofficial product out. So if anyone that's not on that Facebook group, that loves this game should definitely check it out, because the community has absolutely been keeping this game alive.
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then there's also like G.I. Joe and other licensed properties. Like we've talked about that, like just how G.I. Joe would fit great with this system. Same with Transformers and that whole Hasbro universe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that website, the Technohall 13. They have statted up everything on that site, and I would love to see that in a book as opposed to the website. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And then he also brings up the Gang Wars as being like an opening module to use. And then also is like Sentinel World and Time Gone Amok series had options to bring in like your original characters too, because like we said before, a lot of the modules they're written with the pre-gens in mind. So those are some options to look at if you want to use your own characters. And then there's the several sets based on teams. He says had options to bring in new characters in the Avengers or in the X-Men. So like you could be like a new student at the Xavier Institute for the gifted youth. So that actually would be an interesting way to bring in new like younger characters. So if you wanted to play like a teenage group, have them be the new students at the X-Men Academy.
I always wondered why that the Avengers never had a group in Chicago officially.
Yeah, closest they had was the Great Lakes
Great Lakes Avengers, and they were kind of lame.
Right. But Squirrel Girl.
Squirrel Girl.
Yeah. Which actually, our mail is actually run by Squirrel Mail. So her squirrels are actually the ones fielding the mail.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And she did take down Thanos.
Yeah, sure.
So therefore, don't doubt the Squirrel Girl. And then he actually has a timely email talking about how he writes up a game and judges. He was like, he puts that he used to write out the plot of the villain and then introduce the characters at a point where they can affect it. So basically, he has the villain already doing his thing and then just interjects the characters at a point in what the villain's trying to accomplish to see if they can thwart it. So, and if the characters do not take the bait, the villain's plot just goes on as planned. So he'll have them stumble across something. Then that if the players investigate, will reveal something greater. And if not, oh, guess what? Dr. Doom just took over the world. You missed it. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, and he said he found out the game this Saturday. He puts that he found out his game he's currently running. Well, he wrote this back on the 5th, so it was shelved due to illness. So hopefully the new podcast comes out before the next session. So, well, depending on when your next session is, hopefully it came out in time.
Maybe, just possibly.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, and he also threw in just a couple team concepts that he had used over the years. Was like Patrol Special, the Christian Slater movie Cuffs.
Oh my God!
Or he had people deputized by U.S. Marshals, so they were U.S. Marshals and had to go hunt down people. So then he just says, "Great show." Enough said. So yeah, thank you for the feedback. And those are all like great ideas. But yeah. Thank you, everyone, for your feedback on this. No, we really love hearing what you have to say and your show ideas and what you guys are doing in your games and like how you guys judge and create your sessions. So we'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So yeah, just write us in at bullpen@classicfaserip.com.
All right, and you can dial in with a voicemail 570-865-4210 and leave us a nice voice message just telling us what you think, and we'll play it on the air. Yeah. So with that said, I think we're going to depart this week and say Excelsior.
Excelsior.
Excelsior.